Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Debbie. I'm a mixed media artist and you're about to see what that means if you haven't done any before. If you're one of my lovely regulars, welcome back, but welcome everybody. So lovely to see you. Yes, so don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you like what you see in these pages, consider joining my Patreon. One thing about my Patreon too that's worth mentioning right now, a lot of people have visited and said it's all in German. It may be. I'm in Germany at the moment and we're moving back to the UK very, very shortly. But at the moment, I'm still in Germany, which might mean that some of my the things are defaulting to German, but all the videos are in English. And once I sort it out and everything like that, it'll all be in English. So if you are wanting English language art instruction, it's there. But yeah, for some reason it's doing it for some people and not others. Isn't the internet a wonderful place? Let me know if it's happening to you or happened to you and I can help. I'd hate you to miss out on the fun because of that. Right, it is May roundup time again, which means that sketchbooks. What have I done in May? What sort of artwork have I produced in May? Bit all over the place as usual. Let's start with the one on the top since it's here, and because these are in no particular order. This is what I produced on the 10th of May. So yeah, like I said, no particular order. I'm loving at the moment just the atmosphere of summer around us. And this one could be in Britain. It could be in Germany. It's in my head. So it could be anywhere. And because I've got both of those things in my head, there's a bit of mixture. But what I'm really enjoying doing at the moment is even after all this time, refining my own art practice. And like I said, it's mixed media. Now, what mixed media means in this context is, of course, using more than one medium. So if you're just a watercolor artist or just an acrylic artist, that's not mixed media. I use the whole lot. So this started out with pastel in the sky, and then super granulating watercolors for the background. And I really love using that method because they're quite dainty and ethereal, so they really do work well for the background. And if I don't add a lot of layers over the top, I don't ruin the nice effects, which is what's stayed my hand a lot of the time from using them. Was I think, well, I'm just going to pile on heaps and heaps of layers. You won't get to see them and you won't get to appreciate them. But in actual fact, my formula that I'm working out for my order of play is pastel sky, watercolor for the sort of middle background, and then gouache, and this is a bit of watercolor as well, depending on need, but gouache up close, because gouache is a lovely solid looking really present medium, if I can use a ridiculous, I mean that's completely meaningless. Let me not talk in cliches for 5 minutes. Watercolor, like I said, is very dainty, very fragile looking, whereas gouache is a little bit more sort of built from bricks and wood type vibe. Excuse me. And when I add coloured pencil over the top of that, you get this really nice solid foreground, but you've got this nice sort of also a little bit of a more ethereal background, and I find it works quite well. Now, like I said, there is some watercolor up here. These, whatever the hell these are, they have got a name and I can't remember what it is. If I ever remember, I'll let you know. Rose hips and bits and pieces. What I'm fascinated with at the moment is what grows wild in the hedgerows, and it doesn't matter where in Europe you are, as long as there's a hedgerow, something will have moved in and started growing wild. And swallows, of course, very, very important, and quite meditative to do groups of things where you get to do the same shape over and over and over. So yeah, that's what led me to this nice big spread. Like I said, there's some watercolor here because I wanted these to be not sort of like dandelion heads, a bit fluffy and see-through, and then putting the other media over the top. So then I go in with a bit of acrylic marker and there's some ink and coloured pencil and all sorts of things there. Same here, I did the rose hips in a watercolour, but then I did cover them up with more layers than I would have liked. And that's why I've always gone for gouache first and not watercolors because I do this. I put something down and then I cover it with other layers, which is why I love mixed media. And one of the things with mixed media, if you've ever got to the point where you feel there's something missing in your artwork, or you feel constrained by the, here air quotes, rules of your particular medium, that's why I love mixed media. There aren't any real rules. I mean, the only real rule that I've come across that you just can't break is nothing much goes over oil paint. That's it. Just about everything else, you can mix and match different papers, different pencils, different paints, and they'll all, some of them will work, some of them won't. Some of them will work next time because the paper's different, or the coloured pencil, or the substrate. You can change things, but you can't do much over oil. So putting watercolor, for example, over oil paint, fine. If you have reached that pitch of boredom where you need to, you know, to test these things, you have at it, but it's not going to work. So this is this. I just love this. It just feels very, very summery to me. And this is a print that I did with my Patreons. This is a tutorial. It's a jelly print. My regulars may or may not know by now. I'll say it anyway, just in case. I don't use the normal method of jelly printing. I'm not into making endless collage papers, although I do collage, but I don't want to make them like that. And I found that I had a stack that I couldn't see over when I started, because I thought, well, this is what you can do with a jelly plate. You make collage papers. This was a while ago now. And I kept on doing it. I thought, you know, this is fun and all, and I've put some sort of texture in this and maybe stamped something. It's not my journey. I don't like that. I can't really see the point of the sheer volume of papers that I created. So what I did was I sat down and had a play. My jelly plate sat in the drawer for 8 years after that episode, because I thought, well, that was money I shouldn't have spent and I didn't need it. So it sat. And I then thought, you know, last September I had this bee in my bonnet that go through all these drawers, find out things you've not used, either learn to love them because you bought them, you could hear my mother's voice there for a bit, find a way to enjoy them, or give them to someone who will. And, you know, I thought about donating them to nursing homes and things like that. But in actual fact, I got it out and I started painting on my jelly plate, instead of using transfer methods, which a lot of people do. That's not my journey either. I painted directly onto the plate with pan pastels and acrylic gouache, and this is the result. So that's one of my prints. And like I said, there's a tutorial for that. This is a Saturday night, I think, playing around with everything that I had in my toy box. And this, just nothing in particular. Again, pan pastel, bit of watercolor in there, lots of the new Neo Art 6901 pastels. If I can just grab one at random, that's this one from Caran d'Ache. I wasn't sure about them when I first got them, and I only allowed myself to buy 10. And because I have full set syndrome, as I know a lot of you do, there's a very big club over on Patreon for that. They're all sufferers and none of us are sorry. I'd like to say we are, and I mean, if the police come, we'll say we're sorry, but we're not really. We're all full set syndrome sufferers, or very many. There's a new subgroup of people over there at the moment who aren't full set syndrome but want a bit of everything syndrome. So we're making a new subgroup for them and a support group. So if that's you, there's a group to join. This is all sorts of everything, and like I said, I used my new Neo Arts on here, and they're such fun. Really good for textures, really good for drama and things like that. And of course, coloured pencil then over the top. Coloured pencil works particularly well with them, considering they're both an oil and a wax pastel. Normally things are oil or wax, but that's not enough for them. They're both. Yet you can still put coloured pencil over the top. And the effects are really, really quite nice. Very nice to use. Lovely colours mostly. There's a couple I would have swapped out for others had I had a say, but once again I didn't. I'm sure it'll happen one day that they'll ring me and ask my opinion. But no, nice to use actually. This is another, again, just to sort of, I wanted a rain shower with my watercolours. Instead of using pan pastel for the sky, I thought I could make it rain, and it's a bit even. There's a bit too much of a pattern there, but it's not too bad. I'm not a watercolour artist. I started with watercolour, as most people did back in the day, But I'm not a pure watercolor artist, and I don't use anything properly. I'm likely to use watercolor quite thickly and gouache watered right down so it's nearly transparent. So very contrary, but it works for me, and I enjoy it. So this is a bit of watercolor, it's a bit of colored pencil, bit of neo art, bit of ink, all sorts, and just paint for the pure love of it. Nothing in mind for this. Same for this one. This is one of those situations where I've painted this one. I think this was the day before. That was the day before. This is the 20th. Normally I do a sketch a day. Draw every day May. It kind of happens every day of the year. We do that 365 days of the year. I have to be extremely put out or busy or sick or whatever for me not to draw. And I usually complete a sketch in a day because I work pretty quickly, and this stuff's it doesn't take long. But sometimes I realise I've gone overboard and I should have stopped. And this is one of these pictures. There's nothing wrong with it as such, but it's not right either. It's not something that gives me pleasure to look at. Because I was enjoying this one so much, and I think, again, this was a weekend thing, because afternoon, few hours to myself, I thought, I'm going to do this. And then in the evening is my usual art time. After dinner, I cook. Rob does the dishes. That's our agreement, which suits us both fine. And then while he's doing the dishes, I'll come up and do my art for a while, and then we get together and watch one of our shows, which is something we've been doing now for 35 years. So I think we can say it's working. So up I went, and I thought, well, look, let's do some art, and here it is. And I'm just not happy with it. I feel it's just not doing it for me. But anyway, here it is in the book, and it's got its own story to tell, so it deserves a place. What I have done here is I've used my Neo Arts as a resist on the wall here, the fence, and also on the building. So then by doing that first, and this was Primrose, this colour, which is one of my absolute favourites. So useful. If you only buy one, buy Primrose. And then I go over the top with the granulating watercolour, which of course didn't, and then I've gone over the top of that, so it didn't matter. There's a bit of acrylic marker detail, a little bit of oil pastel, the Caran d'Ache Neo pastels I quite like. There's lots of Neos at the moment because we've got Neo Pastel, Neo Arts, Neo Colour 1 and 2. It's all over the place. Keeping track is becoming difficult. And the rest is coloured pencil and a little bit, it's coloured pencil. It's, like I said, it's just one of those things that doesn't work for me as well as I had hoped. And that's that. Sketchbook. Before we go on to the next sketchbook, I'd like to show you something again that I did with my Patreons. On Thursdays, I post a video. Basically, I post 3 videos a week. They get this one, which is a pre-release that goes out to YouTube on Fridays. Then on a Thursday, I do a niche video because basically I'm a landscape artist, but I also like to do other little side shoots. And I know a lot of other people do as well. So what I do is the main video on Friday, which is a landscapey thing or something natural, a tutorial about a technique or a tool, a material, whatever, that's on Friday. But on Thursdays is niche day. So anything that I think might have a narrower audience. So I don't want people to sign up and think, well, I didn't get a video I liked this week. That's not my money's worth. Trying to sort of make everyone happy if possible. So this is a Thursday video because it's a zine and it's a bit weird, but it's also a bit of fun. My favourite Blackbirds, I love those. And this one was all about trees and just sketches. And I did it on both sides because that's sort of how it worked out. Love doing these watercolour rocks. They've been a real theme this month. Yeah, it's just different sorts of trees, different sorts of ways of colouring and adding to backgrounds, which made a bit of I called it a tree sampler zine because we've got our 3 trees and we've got a blackbird in the front. Dandelions, they're fun as well. And I've put myself on a Blackbird ban now because I realised, and you'll see when, excuse me, you'll see when you look at some of my other things here that there's a Blackbird in everything. But that's a little bit like Blackbirds are, they're in everything. So I'm on a Blackbird ban. I'm not allowing myself to do any more for a bit. Pity really, because I missed them already. Excuse me. So this was a tree sampler. So do a few different ones, just to a main summer themed trees with different media, and then of course a cypress at the end. And I've put some heather in because I live at the moment in a national park in Germany where heather here it's a big thing. It's actually a huge industry, and people cross Europe to come and have a look at it. Also, our honey here is second to none. I shall certainly miss this place, I'm not going to lie. So yeah, it's that's our tree zine tutorial. So for one of the Thursday niche tutorials, it's a bit of fun. Right, next sketchbook. Let's spread out a bit here. Like I said, these are all over the place because quite often what I will do is I want a different format. So instead of big, I might want a smaller one. So this is an A5, sorry. Then I've got A4s and so forth. So depending on the paper as well, this one's, it's, as you can probably see there, it's got a different texture. They're all Hahnemühle, which is my favorite brand at the moment. This one's a watercolor, fine grain watercolor sketchbook. This one's the Nostalgia range, which is more for drawing, but it will also take a lot of wet media. So it's perfect for mixed media, because you start wet and then you go drier and drier and drier. Right, yeah, that's it. That was a print. Slightly obsessed this month with not painting leaves, but having them as well. So we want our cake and eat it. So I've been developing ways of putting leaves in, but not actually painting them, because they can be overwhelming, especially for beginners. So this is a method of, it's not prepping the page. I did prep some of these pages, actually. These have all had a bit of a swipe. We'll get to them. More blackbirds, I did warn you. I prepped these pages with some acrylic ink, but then I realized that not every subject is good to have a swipe of blue through it. Like, it can work for shadows, but sometimes it can also be a bit distracting. And it's also downright scary if you've never done it before and you've decided to swipe across the page with blue ink. I remember, and my patrons will absolutely relate to the bloodbath that happened. Not real blood, trust me. It was Liquitex Perylene Maroon, and honestly, if the police came, you'd have some explaining to do, because it looked awful. And I managed to wobble somehow when I opened the jar. It was full. It got all over my fingers and all over the paper. So it was really quite intense there for a while. So yeah, anyway, I don't want that sort of prepped page totally. I want sometimes to be able to put the subject in and then paint round it. Normally, and what I've told my students from day one, has been to paint from the back forward with a subject. So if you're doing landscapes, which most people on my Patreon do, and I attract landscape artists because of course that's what I teach mostly, you work from the sky back towards you. So the sky is going to be the furthest point away from you. So you start there, then you do the background. You might have a row of trees or mountains or something like that, and you work backwards towards yourself. But that doesn't suit for every medium. That's okay if you're an acrylic painter or an oil painter. Those two rules apply totally. But some mediums have to go onto the white of the paper. And inks, watercolors, those are to stay nice and clear and bright. Sometimes, I don't know what I was doing here actually. I think I prepped this page and then I went over the top with everything. This was another one of those ones that I don't feel has worked out, although people like it. So it's weird. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if you like whatever the hell this is, because yeah, it's just, it doesn't feel like me somehow. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I'm not going to put it in the bin, but you know, fat chance in a sketchbook, but I don't love it. So you get that. This is the thing. This is the reality of being an artist. Sometimes you're going to make something and think, I hope no one ever sees this. Maybe I can hide it under a bed or something. Most things I'm happy with, actually, mostly, or I know how to fix them, or I know how to hide the bit that I don't like. But sometimes you just think, I don't know, it feels very muddy and overworked in the middle for starters. And this was my whole point about colours being nice and bright on the page because they've got to go onto the white of the paper, you can see here, these greens are the same as these, and here they're just, it's not working for me. I will almost certainly come back in and have a fiddle with this at some point, so you may even see it again in a better incantation. So while I was doing the rose, I thought pansies. I think, again, for my Thursday tutorials with my patrons, I like to have something that's a little bit different, and I love pansies. And I thought, you know what, they would make a really nice subject for our flowers and not painting leaves. So this was a test that I did to see how I thought I might approach it. As you can see, there are some swipes on here. I have prepped these pages with the smallest amount of ink. I have done other prep pages, and I can find them in this one later on, because if it's a solid object like a house, well, actually it's probably relevant to look for it now. So let me see if I can find it first. Sometimes, sorry, it's all very distracting. These were all prepped quite heavily actually, but because these have got more solid subject matter, it sort of works. Actually, I'm not even sure these are the ones I'm after. That's another prepped one that was prepped quite heavily. Must be those. It's a while ago. It's October last year. Because these are more solid objects on here, like houses and things that are a little bit better. I'm sorry, but this is not what I'm looking for. I might just have to let this go, I'm afraid, otherwise we'll all be here all bloody day. Yeah, I can distinctly remember painting some, aha, here we are. I knew it was in here. These are all, you can see a little bit of the Peroline Maroon that I was talking about behind here, and it took some painting out, I can tell you. But it didn't matter so much because I was going to do a solid picture over the top and basically paint over the top with something quite solid, a house. Whereas these are flowers and they are more delicate. It's like birds. You've got to be careful how you prep the background because it just doesn't work if you just do the same thing for everything. Sometimes you've got to take the foot off the gas pedal a bit. I'm not even, I don't know, the good thing about this is with not painting the leaves, you've still got all of this texture and you've still got the leaves that are coloured because of the background preparation. So yeah, but the main thing is you don't prep as heavy for something like this as you would for something like, or rather the other way around. This is more delicate. It needs more delicate handling. This is a mixed media geranium, one hopes, and yeah, all sorts happening here too. Lots of neo pastels. Loving the way that you can blend these things together. And actually not neo pastels. These were in neo art. I'd just say too many neos. Although there's a neo. Yeah, there's the neo coloured one through here as well. Mixed media. Mixed media to me means whatever I grab. And you can usually find a way to use it. On my unfinished moth. I've lost interest completely in it. I should finish it, and I probably will at some point. I work better on one side than the other, and this bit was okay, and I thought, I just can't be bothered doing all that again on the other side. It's like when you're knitting a pair of socks and you're wondering if the one might stretch to 2 feet. Do we really need to have two socks? Is that an overrated convention that we don't need anymore? It isn't. You need 2 socks. So if you commit to knitting socks, you have to knit 2 socks. I know that now. But same things. Prepped page, little bit of, I prepped about 20 pages. I got very carried away, as you do. But yeah, I may come back one day and finish my moth. I don't know why I thought a moth on a buddleia was a good idea, but here we are. I'm not sure which came first, actually, the moth or the buddleia. And I like the way the brown goes with the purple, and then you've got these flashes of orange. So you've got lots of complementation going on in there, which works quite well. Another prep page, because again, I just did them one after the other. Where this works particularly well is when you've got a solid coloured bird that isn't white. So blackbirds work very well. Apart from the fact that I love them, they also make fabulous subjects. And the prep, so when you're prepping, you don't worry about what's going to go on top of the page. I didn't even know when I prepped all these pages. I had no idea what I was going to put on the top. So I just prepped away, making colours and just making big swipes and feeling like a proper artist for 5 minutes. Then letting them dry and thinking, right, I'll come back and use these, which indeed I have in various ways. And it does work well if like I said, if you've got a colour that's not white. If it's white, again, you don't necessarily want a pink stripe happening for no reason whatsoever across the face and breast. So this works okay because of the brown blackbird and of course the few oak leaves and things like that and branches, but I'm not sure. Today I did a tutorial for my students that had a white bird in it. It had some white on its breast, so the other method works better for that. I'll get to all that. Dandelions. I'm having a bit of a dandelion fetish at the minute. And especially, of course, here at the moment, it's the 1st of June today when I'm filming, and dandelions have gone. We've got some leaves around if you must have a dandelion, but the flowers are long gone, of course, and the little seed heads have long since blown away to create more dandelions. So it's all very much a memory thing. But again, the prepped page allowed me to put some just outline leaves and then do some negative painting and so forth. I love the richness and the depth of this. And yeah, I can see more of this in my future, just getting my crystal ball out. 2 more blackbirds. And again, the prepping on this page had pink in it rather than the orange or yellow. I think it was azu yellow, the other one. This one's got pink in it, which also, it works on the leaves, especially as the flower ends the life cycle and it's not got this bright green anymore. It's starting to go off a bit. And it's completely random. Like I said, I try very hard not to say, that's a nice bit of green, that'll have a leaf there. No, someone's face can go there instead. Just see how it works. And that's the point of this sort of exploratory art. Exploratory art. I mean, I'm sure there are people who would find this very, very workaday and not exploratory at all. But for me, it's quite exploring these things and putting odd colours in feels very anarchic, actually. So my beloved blackbirds again, because they're darker coloured birds and all over the same colour of dark, that works very well on whatever colour you put in the background. I don't think it would have worked on these other prep pages that I've got the houses on because that was really quite heavy. This is better. It's a little bit more whisper thin. And it's a fun thing to do and see what happens. Another black. Oh, here we go. Here's one that I haven't used. Yeah. There's one I haven't used. So this is what some of them look like. And I do see a trend from the first one I did to this one getting heavier and heavier. So my tendency is obviously to be generous with the paint. Sorry about the shine there. It's got this one, this watercolor was separating out a bit and the pigment, the binder is a little bit shiny. I do have a tendency to, when it works really well, I think, well, I'll double the dose and then treble the dose and see if it works. It doesn't. There's often a sweet spot and you can't go past that. You've got to say, right, well, a little bit's what you want. You know, like I said, just a delicate little tickle, not hosing the whole page down with ink. And I guess that's why I haven't done anything on this at the moment, because at the moment I'm very much in this sort of mood, whereas this might need a house, something a little bit solider, more solid. Let's get our English right. But anyway, my blackbird again, I do love them. And the rest of the month, which I haven't dated, but I know this was done in May, was done with me. I have in February, I posted a video to say that I didn't really like watercolor and that was one of the things that I was thinking about donating, and especially all of my lovely super granulating ones that I love because of the textures. I mean, look at some of these, they're just stunning. And now I found myself buying some more. So there's going to be an unboxing video coming up because I've just bought some more watercolors and they're all different branded super granulating. So that's coming. And I thought, well, I'm going to just use a couple of pages to actually just swatch what I've got and see what they look like. Nice big swatches. I I did this years ago, you know, doing these round sea glass and pebbles and all sorts of things like that. But they're really, it's a lovely way to swatch. You need, with super granulating watercolor, it needs a couple of things. One, it needs space to move. And two, it needs water to swim in. It doesn't mind being bullied about a bit either. You know, some of these you can just paint and they'll do their own thing. Others you've got to come back and prod a few times. So, you know, you get to know them when you do this. But these nice big, because, I mean, if you look at my thumb, they're quite large. And that's what they need. A little tiny thumbnail swatch with a super granulating watercolor, it won't impress them enough to make them do anything. So, yeah. I blotted some of these because they weren't drying quickly enough, but the Galaxy Black is really a lot nicer than this. Actually, I can grab this little guy. That's the colour I painted. The Blackbird on this scene was Galaxy Black from the Schminker range, which are beautiful. I've got a couple here from Holbein. I love this Trumpet Vine red one. Twilight Purple, I don't know. I think I've got others that I prefer, so that was one I probably could have left. Daniel Smith, I've got a few of those. The Lunar Black is the least favourite there. Love Shadow Violet, love Moon Glow. I'm probably the same as everybody else there, but my absolute understated favourite is Undersea Green. Love that. Beautiful colour and nice to use. So, yeah, I've got some gaps here, which is what I've left deliberately. I haven't got the full set, and that's bugging me now. So I'll have to go off and buy some so that I can still be in the full set syndrome club. Right, next one here is only a couple of pictures in this one, I think. A few actually. Again, this came off the back of the first one I showed you, which was this one back here for reference. If I can find it again, which I probably never will. No, yes, that one. This is the one I painted first. And then I loved that, doing it so much, I went in and did another one in a similar idea. This one's got a little bit more of a solid background, and I think I prefer the other one more. It's got more light in it. Light as in lightness of weight, and also lightness of colour as if the sun glare was on the fields. So I don't hate this, and I really enjoyed painting these yellow flowers. And again, just what people call weeds. They make wonderful subjects. 11th of May, this looks like another Saturday where this has worked okay, so I went on straight away and did another one. Again, just one of these little cottages that I love, and a nice, I think, Peak District. It might be Lake District, but it's a picture I've seen somewhere. Again, pan pastel background, all sorts of, I did do this in watercolor, but then I had to come back and cover it all up with my Neo Arts because I wanted to use those. And this is why I resisted using watercolor like this. You saw on those swatches how beautifully they granulate. It is such a shame to cover them up, and you can only see some of the granulation. But look, worse things happen at sea, can I say? So let's just say that this is okay, and I'm going to learn to be okay with it, live with it. This is a tutorial for my patrons. On Thursday, somebody had made a request of sea thrift, and I wanted to do some rocks on the cliff to show it off, because although it doesn't always grow high up in the gods, sometimes it does. So it was a perfect time to make all of these beautiful granulating watercolor rocks, and then go round with a colored pencil and find them all and add little shadows and so forth like that. It's probably one of the most relaxing things that I did. And yeah, the thrift is a lovely subject for it too. And again, to be able to do the sea, knowing that the sea was way down, that we're really high up here. You know, you won't get an Uber up here. This is so far down that you can't see any detail. You just see a blank wall of blue, and that's where the super granulating watercolors come into their own, because they will provide all the texture you need and allow people to look down there and well, they might look up and think that's a sky because of course it's blue, but if they know that the thrift is growing up quite high, it can be the sea as well. And it's got these white variations in it and a little bit of other granulation, all you need. So yeah, really, really fun to do. Oh, this is a work in progress. I haven't gotten anywhere with this yet, so it's something that I have planned. I might do some more work on it this evening. Right, that's that one. Get out of the way. Let's go with this one. Oh, there's a fair bit in this one. Let's start because it's all scattered throughout the whole thing. So I've made some markers. Sorry, you don't probably want to be seeing the whole thing. I've got to find the first marker. Oh, come on, it can't be difficult. That was the point of using them. Right, here's number one. This was me having a bit of a tantrum, actually. I had some more of the heavily prepped pages, as you can see through here. And I thought, I'm probably not going to use these very much, but I had taken delivery of the rest of the set of the Neo Pastels. No, Neo Arts, these, Neo Art 6901. And I wanted to see what I could do with them if I just scribbled and did stuff. So, you know, a bit of sgraffito here, bit of scribbling, allowing the background to shine through. It's not terrible. It's not, it doesn't feel 100% me, because I always I want to put more detail into things, and this wouldn't let me. So it was a really quite good exercise. But my standout favourite for the whole thing were the church windows in the end. I didn't go over those with anything. That's just the prepped page behind there. And I thought, you know what? I've achieved stained glass windows by accident, which is always good. And just sometimes being okay with just the outline of something. You don't have to overwork everything. Note to self. Some of them I put some branches in and so forth to show that they really are trees. And then, of course, the sky, because it was all pink before. And as you can see, some of the colours under there, they're quite bright. But just going in and making shapes. And this one is one I actually like the best, I think. I do like the fox, and the robin's cute as well, to be fair. This is probably a bit meh. It's boring. This is the one I did first, and quite often when I'm doing something like this, because it's something I don't normally do, I'm minding my manners mostly for the first one. I'm on my best behaviour. So I make sure that I put everything where it's supposed to go and do it right, do it correct, just in case someone's watching. And by the time I'm finished, I think, yeah, whatever. But that means also that the results are slightly different, and I do prefer these sort of came in order, and then this last one. But one thing I did like about this was I used my craft knife. This one here, it's actually broken. It's the slice. I tried to sharpen my pencil. The pencils, I mean, honestly, there's got to be a time. I can't even find it now. That's how small it is. It's about this long, and it no longer works in a pencil sharpener, but this works. What I did was I used this to scratch out some of the lines so that you can see you get some texture there. It's not probably very permanent, and it's not going to take much to smudge it, but it was quite interesting to use. Yeah, like I said, the safety cap's broken, so well done, guys. Might be something I did, to be fair, so let's not apportion blame this early on. It worked okay for that sort of thing, and you know, you've got this sort of background. And I remember doing this in primary school, actually, where we would paint with all sorts of rainbow colours. I'm talking about 8 years old here. Then that dried. Or no, actually, it wasn't paint. It was crayon. That's right. Crayon back in the day. And I grew up in Australia, so crayon was what we called any sort of wax pastel. So you'd draw stripes with crayon, quite heavy. Then you go over the top with black, just plain black poster paint, again, is what it was called. It was probably a form of gouache, to be fair. And then you'd go in and you'd scratch a picture, and you'd see the little rainbow bits popping out, which was quite nice. And I found it fascinating, not realising where I was going to end up one day or what I was going to be doing. But I thought it was really nice. So it kind of gave me a bit of a vibe of that. Just playing. And this is what a sketchbook's for in a lot of ways. There are people around who would look at my sketchbooks and say these are not proper sketchbooks. You don't do this. And I know that this has been raised on the internet a few times with people. Not me, but a few other people have actually said this, that they've been told that they're not using their sketchbooks properly. Actually, people can use their sketchbooks how they like. I think we'll all agree, and everybody else needs to mind their business. A few people have had quite hostile comments, apparently, you know, other artists on here. I shan't name names or anything, but you know, it's a dreadful thing to say, and it's not necessary, and it's not even true. You can use your sketchbook how you like. Sometimes I'll just do a simple drawing. Other times I'll do a full drawing that could have been framed if it hadn't been a sketchbook, and it's my sketchbook. It's also your sketchbook when you're using yours. You do what you like. And sorry, rant over. Normal programming will be resumed. Anyway, I like my church windows. He's all right. It wouldn't accept another layer of anything, which is why I couldn't sort of highlight. I don't think, just grab a yellow. Nah, it's not going to take much at all. Little bit. Little bit. But they're fun to use, and they made me feel very much as though I was playing. See here, I've not covered in all the parts in my sketchbook, and it's absolutely fine. Hardly anybody died. That's a tutorial, and it's been seen before. These are May. Basically, I was nearly finished this sketchbook, so I came back to see where there were gaps, and there were gaps, so I filled them in. It's just a riot of everything. 2 test colours, random test colours of what looks very much like gouache. I know it is. And another Blackbird. And playing with a pastel background, soft pastels, the little chalky ones. The bit of watercolour, I think, or gouache there for the pavement. And again, a bit of gouache or watercolour. It's hard to tell for the Blackbird herself. And again, I like that. It's super, super simple and easy, and it felt really good to do it. This one here, again, in the hedgerow dandelion fetish, I enjoyed doing this, and this is where I realised you don't have to paint any leaves and you can still have them. So this one actually came before the other ones. Nice puffballs. I'd like to do a whole spread of this sort of thing throughout, and I'm thinking about this for a Thursday tutorial for my Patreons, to do a whole accordion sketchbook that goes throughout the year. I've started one here actually for my year in, well, we've been here for 6 years actually, but my time here in Germany. I have started one of these, and it works particularly well because each page can be seen as a page by itself, or it segues into the next one perfectly, and you get this nice continuation through the year. So, you know, it would be very nice to have the one before here would still have some dandelions in, but they would be one step back and have another. There'd be one hedgerow plant or weed per page, but then you'd have a little bit of overlap with the previous and the next to show the life cycle. So the previous page would show some dandelion flowers, for example, that sort of thing. That's what I'm thinking. Oh, this was another one that I popped in. I was listening to Dracula while I did this. It's most un-Dracula-like. I love that. Oh, I've read it so many times, and now I've got it on Audible as well. It's just my favourite book. But this, I don't know, for some reason, this is what popped in. And looking at our garden, which looks very much like this actually, I shall miss our garden, very much so, but it's not something I can't create in another place given enough space. So yeah, lots of inky, watercolory, blobby backgrounds, which you can then build on. But also trying to teach myself to remember that I can also paint the subject first, as in the pergola got painted first, and then I did all the rest around it, rather than solid background, next layer over the top, next layer over the top, next layer over the top. That's true of things like acrylic, but with all these other things, it isn't. And had I put this very delicate coloured, even I think this is gouache, this one, but this very, very delicate sandy wooded coloured pergola, if I put that over the back of all this green, not only would it be all mottly, but it would also be slightly dulled down. Even though it's gouache and should be opaque, it's not, because I've watered it right down. So it won't be opaque. It can't be. It's got too much water in it. So I steeled myself to do that bit first in the path, and then built everything else in just gradations of blobs basically over the top of it, which works. But I've got to remember to do it because I like the work backwards type model, This was another one of those ones that I shouldn't have done because I don't like it. It's not me. But I was interested in having a sky that wasn't green. Yeah, right. Here's the green sky. Wasn't blue or grey. So this non-traditional colour, this looks slightly post-nuclear sky, but it's not. It's just meant to be a sunset. Probably the less said, the better. Where are we up to? Then we get into the proper stuff for the month. Right. 1st of May, no less. We've now come to the 1st of May. Excuse me. So I had, again, this is going to sound awfully wrong, but a sheep crush. And I wanted to do a nice tutorial with my Patreons with sheep, and I'll show you those in a second where that sort of led. But this was one of the first ones. I quite enjoyed putting a background around it, making it like a little plate, if you like. Watercolor, gouache, and really enjoying this tan color for doing things with. And I've worked out an order of play, of course, the way I paint my sheep, and the only way to work it out, the only way to see if it's going to work for everybody is to keep doing it and see where the limitations are. There aren't any. It works. So, yeah, there's a bit of pan pastel in there. There's a bit of neo art. There's all sorts, and it all works. It works for lambs as well. And then Cosmere popped into the middle of it because one of my patrons requested a Cosmere tutorial, a cosmos tutorial. So I've done that one, and watercolor, very delicate, nice little flowers, and again just playing around straight onto the page. Nothing fits in my sketchbooks, nothing follows on. It's all the whims. I dare say a decent psychiatrist would look at this and wonder if I should be out without a carer, because it's just all over the place. But it makes sense in that it's tied together by the thread of both the mixed media and also the fact that it is all the world of nature. One thing I've been really aware of is that it's not until autumn, actually another point for the comments, if you've made it this far, thank you if you have. Do you find that it's only around autumn time that we start focusing on the little details? And it's usually mushrooms. Mushrooms come and we can't resist painting them. But there are little details all year. Are you a person who just waits till autumn and then realizes that there's a small world under the hedges, or do you tend to do it all year? I'd be fascinated, because up till now I've been oh yeah, there's spring, there's some flowers, and summer's got some flowers. Oh, autumn's got mushrooms. I'm going to paint mushrooms, and I spend all the season looking at mushrooms, painting them, reading about them, eating them. We've grown them. We're going to do that again too when we finally find our feet in the UK, as we will grow them. And that was fun. Lion's mane especially, super expensive to buy, very easy to grow, and oh, do they taste delicious. The best way to cook them is, if you've ever tried this sort of side swipe here, because I garden as well. Heavy bottom pan. I've got cast iron pans. Le Creuset are really particularly good for this. So slice, put them in butter, and then put another heavy cast iron pan on the top to keep them weighted down. They'll release a lot of water, but when that goes away, you are left with a lobster umami flavour that, I tell you what, I could eat nothing but lion's mane mushrooms for months. Actually, they're so good. Thank you. Back to the program. It's all right to have a little ad here and there. Badgers, again, I love these sorts of natural things. I love things that come out at night. I come out at night. It's nice to, the Crafty Vamp is my handle for a reason. I love these sorts of things. I also love beleaguered animals that people aren't keen on, because I really feel as though somebody has to fight there's got to be someone for everybody's corner. And these badgers are lovely. So what I wanted to do was to show 2 badgers coming out of their set for the evening, sniffing at the air, what's good around here to eat, that sort of thing. What do we do next? And I love doing these backgrounds with inks and pan pastels to get that glowy sunset. It's so soft, and then going over the top with other inks, acrylic ink over the top, and drawing ink, sketching ink, all sorts of things over the top. It works particularly well, and it's very easy to get a nice depth in your work that way. Slightly different here, come out more into the open, but same thing, last rays of sunset. I tend to go on a theme sometimes. It's sheep, it's badgers in sunsets, it's cosmere. It's the way the old brain works. So I'll start on something and then I'll keep developing that theme, I think, if we're being kind. Can we call it that? Again, lots of mixed media, and as I said, there's inks, there is pan pastel, there's a bit of gouache, there's a bit of watercolor, there's a lot of colored pencil. The neo arts, they were coming out quite a bit, and they are going to continue to do so because they are great in mixed media art. They definitely have a place in mixed media art. It took me a little while to find out what that was, but once I did, we're sort of off to the races. This is a tutorial about an unboxing. And this is, again, my cosmere. This is where I got to it, where I refined it down to a method that I could teach. Because it's one thing to be able to do something yourself. It is another thing entirely to get the message across to other people. So that was the one that I thought, this is how I do cosmere in particular. And then back to doing a landscape just for the love of doing a landscape. I had some time in the evening and this is what I produced. A little bit less of a sort of in-your-face, not blue sky. It's evening, might be morning actually, depends. Love this one. This was one of these ones where I had plenty of time on my hands. I started it a bit too big, if I'm honest. I wanted to draw a blackbird. And I started all this and then I went over here and did some work. I started with the sky, of course, as you're supposed to. You're not supposed to. It's just, I've got to get over myself, is what I've got to do. So I started with the sky with pan pastel and then I did some watercolors in the background for the mountains, and then we've got more watercolor and a bit of pan pastel. I tend, when I do my pan pastels, I'll wipe the applicators in any waterway that's nearby because I want to get that same colours reflecting from the sky. Then fir trees, bank of trees, a few more bits and pieces here, a bit of acrylic paint coming into it. And then I got to this bit and I thought, I'm going to run screaming into the street if I have to do this much longer. It's just grass. We don't want to be too, dramatic or anything. But my drama queen moment, this is it. I couldn't face doing the whole thing right across. I don't know why, because it wasn't difficult. And I've done more. I've done bigger ones. I've done it before. Maybe it was just the day. Anyway, wind wasn't blowing from the right direction or something. So I decided to collage some oak leaves on, which is exactly what I did. All of these are done with little bits of paper, which I pre-colour as a rule. I've actually got some for a tutorial I'm writing at the moment. Again, another use, excuse me, for our super granulating watercolours. I tend to keep snippets of cardboard. Or paper. This is Fabriano mixed media paper that I've cut off other things that I've been doing when I wanted to have a particular size of picture. It arrives in huge sheets, A1 I think is the size, huge sheets, and I cut it down to what I need, and there's always a strip. It doesn't matter how I do it. It's choosing how big a wastage you want for that particular size of picture. So always keep them. I know I said before I got sick and tired of jelly printing collage papers because there was overwhelming amounts of it. Whereas this, I've got these little offcuts and I can do all sorts of different ones. And these, I'm not telling you what they are because I know my Patreons are listening and it's a surprise. So that's coming. So sorry about that. Anyway, I make these collage papers and then I can go over the top. And this particular lot was a little bit of acrylic ink, lots of watercolour, little bit of watercolour pencil, little watercolour, acrylic marker, coloured pencil for sure, more acrylic marker. Some of it's a brush marker for the edges and then a nice fine one for the veins. But it really, really helped. So if you're in a picture situation where you've had enough and you think, I can't do this anymore. People don't live long enough to do a picture this long. This is 10 times the lifespan of a human is required to colour 2 pages, apparently. Do something different in that bit. I've done this before, actually. I did a picture of a castle here in Germany and I got sick of it. So I collaged a magpie in the front with oak leaves around the outside, which is what gave me the idea to do it again here. And it kind of works because it gives some depth and a focal point on this page. And we've got a focal point on that page, but we've also got the collage going across. You could have done this in, I could have just painted them on. Just don't have to collage them, just draw them in and paint them on. But nothing is quite as solid as a collage. It goes over everything, you see, and it gives you great sort of anchoring in this particular part of the picture. So do consider doing it if you've not done it before. Huge fun, actually. This was just a particular page of me just doing anything I felt like. Because sometimes I sit down at my art desk and I know what I want to do. Others, I've got absolutely no idea whatsoever. So I just sit down and paint motifs and themes. I particularly like this one, funny enough. That's on that trumpet vine red granulating watercolor that we saw a while ago. Magpies, because I'm promising not to paint blackbirds for a little while. Bit of soft pastel there, lots of watercolor, different things happening, and nothing in particular, just what motif do I want to paint next. Not keen on mice, so I thought I'd paint one, see if it helped. It didn't. I like this one as well. This is this sort of lovely richness that I quite often try to get into my pictures. I'm hoping there's no shine there. I don't think there is. And I hadn't painted cows for a while, but again, this is how my brain works. Because I'd painted sheep, I'm still mentally on the farm. So what else can I paint while I'm here? So cows. And cows sheltering under a tree, still in this hedgerow mode. So that worked for me to be able to put these flowers in the front. This was pan pastel for the sky, and it was some coloured watercolour back here. Sort of got obscured a bit, but not completely. This was all watercolour because I knew I wasn't going to do too much for it. With that, I wanted to anchor all of the action to the front of the picture, and this is the result. So yeah, I like that. It's one of those ones that I would have framed this if I hadn't put it in my sketchbook, but there you go. And again, hot off the heels of that, this took 2 nights. I stamped it twice. Bought one of these old-fashioned library stamps about 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, I think. 2022 I bought it. I can see that's the first bit that had gotten dirty. And I love it. For this, it's great. I can tell then what I've done and in what order. So pan pastel, watercolour, gouache, starting with gouache and acrylic gouache, some foxgloves for the border because still in that sort of painting things mode. I like the lawn here. It looks quite sort of wild, but at the same time people are living here. And this is a point that I've made to my students before, and it's worth repeating here, is if you don't like painting humans into your pictures, sometimes it works just as well to show evidence of where they've been. And washing hanging on the line is one of the nicer ways. It sort of evokes some homey memories in us and feelings. And washing on a line shows that there have been people about recently. It's not a desolate house that, you know, a serial killer's rented for the weekend. It's a house. It's a home. There are people. There are probably children because some of these sheets are small, that sort of thing. So you can convey the same message of human inhabitation without actually putting humans in the picture, which I love. Lots and lots of my Neo Art 6901s, these again, the new ones, in here, because, well, one thing that I love them for is texture on buildings. And this stone texture, which you've got to be really trustful of the process, because you've got to put this on to the white page and it's almost invisible, and then you go over the top with the super granulating watercolor. And nothing else works as well as super granulating watercolor. I know that because I've tried. You can use gouache and wipe it back, but it doesn't work the same way. This is the gold standard. And on the roofs and so forth, well, put it this way, you may have another way of doing it yourself, but this is, for my sketchbook, this is the gold standard. And there's a little bit of acrylic marker and so forth in there to make a little house. And love painting these cottages and things like that. But yeah, so do consider putting human habitation in as a hint. For example, you might put a car into the picture. I wouldn't, I don't think, because I don't think I could draw one. I may be able to, I've never tried, but it's not something I like. You could put a bike leaning up against the railing or something like that, something that shows that there are people about, because it does change the mood sometimes of your picture. You would expect people to be there. I mean, the fact that there's a house in it shows that there's human inhabitation, because these things don't grow out of the mud. Someone had to put that there. But it could be abandoned, it could be all sorts of things, and that's not a good mood for a summer sketch. And the foxgloves, again, I'm really loving in the summertime at the moment with summertime mode, anchoring the picture quite firmly with a nice foreground of flowers. I've done flowers in the background. Some of this here, you might read that in your mind as being flowers, and it could be in the lawn. But this is absolutely flowers. There's nothing else you can mistake that for. So yeah, it's nice, and I'm particularly enjoying painting that way. Right, so I painted the garden scene that you saw before while I was listening to Dracula. I've finished listening to Dracula now, and I'm listening to something else I'm listening to. British history. So that made me paint a German castle. Like I said, a psychiatrist had such fun with this. I have no idea, but anyway, it was fun. I prepped the page, as you can see, with some dark inks. I want to say that this is a moonlight type scene, and I've painted one of the little windows with gold in it, or yellow for light. And I love this. This is Burg Eltz, which is one of my favourite German castles, and that I've been visiting since I was a child. And yeah, it makes a fabulous sort of subject for this sort of thing. Works particularly well with the prepped page, and the trick is to not overwork it. I'm not a fan of loose painting, as you can see here. I'm a fusspot. I want to fuss over details, and I want to put all the details in, this sort of thing. This is not as much my style, but I wanted it anyway, and I can do it. And not painting to the edges of absolutely everything causes physical pain sometimes. I'm sure I can manage to overcome. So that's that. But no, I do like that one. And back to Blackbirds. Okay. This one was one that I did further on from the picture of the garden. Again, Blackbirds doing things, and some echinacea plants for something different. Also a collage, because I wanted to use all of my mixed media. So including a collage was important. And yeah, again, I like the way that they go solidly over the top of everything else. You've got all this wishy-washy stuff in the background. Then you've got these very solid, very real looking flowers in the front. I mean, not realistic looking, that's not what I mean. I mean, you can see that they're there. There's no sort of mistaking. Like, you might look back into the mists here and think, oh yeah, that looks like a house or a castle or a butterfly or a pair of shoes or whatever it is you're seeing. Whereas with this, that's a flower. And that's the end of that sort of thing. So yeah, another sketch. Whilst you can see why I put myself on a Blackbird ban about now, I think. I had this mad idea. I had the flu this week, so maybe this is a fever dream, but it worked out. What I wanted to do was use Blackbirds to swatch all my brown and black super granulating watercolors. This isn't actually all of them. I found some more since I filmed this, but we're just going to go with these because we've done it now. But then I thought I would turn them into little birds as well, and that's sort of what's happened here. And it was incredible fun. I absolutely urge you to try it. So if you've got a whole heap of colours that you want to swatch, and that there is a subject that is so beautifully suited as blackbirds, because of course the females being brown and the males are black, so I had both. I could hit both, but well, two birds with one stone. I hope they're blocking their little ears. It works really well. It's fun, and now I can see how they work with this sort of application of the super granulating watercolor, because the watercolor does most of the work for you. So if you're worried about painting birds, you think, oh, look, I'm not sure where everything goes, and I'm not sure how to get the texture here or the texture there. Quite a lot of it, if you use these watercolors and then do minimal over the top, I'm talking to me here, you can actually get some great achievements by not doing very much at all. And yeah, it's fun. So like I said, do consider that. So this one is a tutorial too, which has gone out by the time everybody's seen this, thank goodness. And we're back to this again here. This one is my partridges. Again, sitting down, plenty of time, allowing myself a couple of days, which might seem strange. Like I said, I wish I could slow down my artwork. I really wish I could paint slower, but I can't. It happens in the time it happens. And the interesting thing about this was, in this one, for starters, there's lots of pan pastel in the background, but I made myself do the watercolors first. So the first mark I made on the page were these little berries. And then I did everything else around them, because I wanted to see how that worked, and I'm liking it better than a solid background, solid foreground, solid middle ground, and so forth. It's meant to be nice and all fuzzy and distant here, and all of this sort of close up. Managed to incorporate some of my non-leaves with the leaves that I actually painted. So these took a while because I had to paint each and every single one of them, and then put the other layers over the top with the acrylic marker, coloured pencil, any inks, any shading, anything at all that wasn't the leaf itself. That had to happen one after the other. And of course my partridges, including this aggressive guy who has had, I believe there's about 4 beaks under there before I got the beak right on him. But it worked out in the end, and I'm just going to leave it. But he doesn't look happy, and that's almost certainly all my fault. That's his opinion anyway. So nice. I enjoyed doing that. I love painting the sort of European nature that we see here. Like, you'll see these you see these things in hedgerows, you see them in forests, you see where they've been, and I love that. And finally, it is finally too, these are tutorials, or this one here is a tutorial on my Patreon about how not to paint leaves. And it's a lot of fun actually. And it's a nice way when you look into a tree at this time of the year, and it is, I've painted this on the 1st of June, and it is the 1st of June today that I'm filming. And if you look outside, the trees, especially in our bathroom, which is up, it's next to an old oak tree and it's upstairs. So it feels like if you're in a tree house bathroom, but the tree itself is just a wall of leaves, and you just look at it and you're thinking, I'm getting a migraine just thinking about which leaf to start with there. So the best way to achieve success is don't paint the leaves. Ignore them. Pretend they're not there. And this is how I do that. So the bird, again, started out watercolor, got a few other layers in there. Love painting my birds. Not a particularly difficult one, and all part of that tutorial as well. We managed to get it all in the same sort of timing. So you can do a non-specific tree, bush, shrub, or you can do one that is quite specific, which is an oak here. And yeah, it's interesting and fun. Lots of fun actually to paint that. Enjoyed that. And I love the way the bird turned out. Blue and brown in birds is very, very easy to achieve what you want with, actually. It works really well, and it's very easy to do. Or easier than some other colours, can I say. This is my new Hahnemühle Nostalgia sketchbook, but I did do this is a sheep tutorial that my patrons and I did together. And my 2 very tough looking, this one, as one of you pointed out, this is a biker sheep. I can't unsee that now. This guy's getting a leather jacket here. Gormless over here doesn't just... I guess they're sheep, aren't they? So hopefully they look like them. But we did poses of different sheep. The recipe for sheep, not a recipe for cooking them, but for painting them. And all of that is part of the tutorial. And this was also part of it. I ended up instead with a sketch because I thought, well, that's something a little bit different, and show how to add some horns, because once you've got a sheep recipe down and know what you're doing and what goes where, you can then transfer those skills to paint other species of sheep. Because when I was planning this, because I know sheep were popular in our group, and I thought, well, sheep, what does a sheep look like? Because here in Germany we have lovely long-haired ones, and they're just gorgeous. They've been around for a long time and they're still grazing the same ancient moorland, which is so nice. And Britain has different sorts of sheep, and of course other countries have theirs. But the question as to what does a sheep look like, oh my goodness, it would take lifetimes to explain it. So I had to choose a sheep. So I chose a fairly generic looking sheep, and then I just wanted to show how you could change it by adding a bit of a face mask and some horns. And like I said, ended up with biker sheep. So this is Harley, his name can be. This is Harley the sheep, and Gormless, Harley and Gormless. Actually, you know what? If I ever started a clothing brand, Harley and Gormless, wouldn't that be wonderful? And if you ever see it written down anywhere, you will know exactly where it came from. Right, and on that note, I shall let you get back with your lives. Thank you so much for staying with me this long. I've really enjoyed your company. And this is the May version of the roundup, of course, in case we've forgotten why we came. I think it's time I stopped rambling and went and read a book quietly in the corner somewhere until the meds kick in. Thank you so much for your company. I do appreciate everything you do for me, and I'll see you again next week. Yeah, bye. See you then. Take care. Bye for now.